My inclinations from my childhood till now. Let's dig out the inclinations from my childhood till now. I can divide my main inclination into 3 periods. Nostalgic about childhood in village and a Sufi. I was very nostalgic about my childhood in the village a couple of years ago. This state started from 2012 and 2013 when I was in Ireland to 2016. I was comparing Waterford land areas to my village. Though it was different in terms of cleanliness and greenishness, there were still areas I could think of the same as in my village. I admired too much the things we had in our village. The freedom I had to go anywhere with my dog, picking berries, candy, toot etc., swimming in ponds. We have a big cot or a house which has many amenities, I will write in my diary, including many semi-machines. We had many types of pets and animals. Rabbits, swans, hens, pigeons, goats, buffaloes, cows and a parrot also. We have lands to cultivate not only wheat and rice but watermelons, barley, gugro, tomato, chilies and other vegetables. So this all taken back me, how great it was. For many years, amazed by movies and technologies, I was hoping for a long time that one day I would be able to see my past days in the village. Turning to my interests, when we moved to Karachi, initially I was amazed by the storybooks and magazines. Ankh Macaulay Hide and Seek, Nana Hall Childhood, Tailimo Tarbiyat Education and Training, and many others were my favorites. I was reading religious books a lot. Read the Quran with translation, and many other books on Islam. I read Kashful Majab on Sufism and many other books. I have written a collection of ayats on many topics. I made a file in which I was sticking our heroes' pics and posts about Pakistan, patriotism, Islam etc. I was listening to Friday sermons and Tuesday and Thursday sermons and speeches by religious preachers. I was watching state television PTV a lot. I have made a schedule of all programs aired from starting at 5 p.m. to 9 or 10 p.m. Very later I had 2 channels to see PTV and STN or NTM. When visiting my village every year during vacations for some months, I listened to radio stations for Sindhi and Urdu songs, Indian songs and classical ragas at night and BBC News at 8 p.m. regularly. Later when FM stations started, I was listening to those whole nights. A monthly Ruhani Digest, Spiritual Digest, was my favorite for many years. I was also reading books from my father's bookshelf. Those were hard to understand but I was feeling something great when reading. I was reading newspapers, Sunday magazines, and later books on nationalism, history, personalities, literature. Later the time of PTV and other channels increased from 5 to 9 to 24 hours. More TV channels opened in 2008. Initially whatever programs were aired, I watched them all. Later I had to make a choice, including PTV's long plays which were a trip to heaven for me, and Pakistani movies on PTV, STN and Indian movies on VCR in the shape of cassettes. Initially I hated Indian songs and movies. I have written a list of movies and songs copied by Indie. But with time, I got out of the state propaganda against India. I was fond of comedy programs and cartoons. Very later I started reading books often and obliged myself to purchase some books every month. I started watching talk shows. In newspapers, we were getting Jang War newspapers. Later my father started Dawn and Apas. I started reading columns in addition to news. My favorite columnists were Nadeem Farooq Paracha, Abbas Nasir, Babar Sattar, Hassan Nisar and many others. I was spending too much time playing games on my PC and Sony PlayStation brought by a relative from Saudi. I became addicted to such programs on politics, history and current affairs that in Ireland during studies, I started watching those again secretly in rooms of the college. The Pakistanis living with me were of opposite camp who are eluded and brainwashed by RE News and likewise fake news TV channels. Unfortunately majority of Pakistanis are brainwashed by the state and compelled mentally to buy the arguments done on these TV channels. Despite these channels lost their case in UK and other European countries. 2. Humanist to extremist religious. In our village we have a mosque and practice Islam but it has nothing to do with extremism or blind following of orders for hating people from other sects or religion. There were many Hindus living in the city near us. They include very good doctors, shopkeepers, and teachers. There were OAD who construct buildings with mud called Odd in Sindhi living near our village. It was humanism, equality between all the peoples living there. Later in the 90s suddenly we see many preachers come from Punjab. They make more mosques, more offices, preach Talibanism. Eventually the small libraries and places where we read books, perform cultural events vanishing. In our village mosque also an imam was appointed for prayers despite we had our own. Gradually people are brainwashed to hate others more than Muslims, even other sects than Wahhabis. I was not so much engaged in these activities. One reason we moved to Karachi and visited my village and city on vacations, but in Karachi also there was strong propaganda everywhere which made me religious and nationalist. More than nationalism and patriotism, I was fanatically religious, practicing every prayer, Taraweeh, fast in the month of Ramadan, have a beard and was against my father's opinion about equality. I will write in detail about this later but it influenced me a lot. 3. Religiosity to spirituality and Sufism. Later gradually my thinking, belief system and opinion changed from extreme religious and nationalist to Sufism and socialism. I was influenced by the left. The books of Sabt Hassan made me a supporter of socialism, but more than that I believed in the Sufism philosophy of equality, minimalism and simplicity. The age in which I should have been motivated or energized to work hard for making money and fame. I wanted a life of a darvish or a fakir and apas. That influence made me so lazy, lethargic and lacked the fire to do something in apas. I was interested in study arts, literature, but instead of fine arts, my father and people around me suggested strongly to pursue education in science which lead to engineering. Then I caught in this rope till masters, never finding any way to pursue the field I was interested from childhood. Therefore in the University of Engineering and Technology, I loved to create items to present as one-man show in university events and was going to the Library of Arts University to read books and had friends there. In addition to this, as I was reading books on Sindhi nationalism and later learned of the true history of Pakistan, I became a proponent of human rights and a staunch supporter of secularism. I was interested in attending literature festivals, music festivals, all the way till I went to Ireland and returned to Pakistan in 2015 until 2018 when I went to Sweden. Humanism, secularism and human rights was my thing. From the end of 2018 when I became busy in delivery jobs for 2-3 years, I started listening to self-help books, watching programs about it, reading and listening to these types of books. I was addicted to this field until the start of 2022 when I stopped listening to them. It is a big story in my life and I will write on it how it brainwashed me and I hardly managed to get rid of this addiction. Now I have a hard choice to make in life whether to read and write blogs related to politics, history and social affairs in which I have keen interest and will read books, not got time from last many years and coming many years until I got visa and survival fixed, or write on spiritualism and philosophy which is again my field of interest but loosely. The strange thing is I have an inclination to this discipline but did not save books on it except poetry by some Sufi poets and a study on Hinduism, Buddhism, Zen on the internet. It will depend more on my experience of life about the second field. But I cannot diminish my interest to read books on history, politics, social and current affairs etc. There is a lot to write on this subject but I am avoiding it due to too much length of blog. Please comment, suggest and share. I will be obliged for your valuable comments. So do not hesitate to write anything you feel after reading this blog. Thank you for listening.